Okay, we're live.
Yeah. Gotta alert the masses. Woo.
Yep.
You can just hear the sounds of clicking.
Click, click.
Yeah.
You know, just while everyone takes their seats and gets accommodated. This is what it's actually like. A lot of clicking.
I didn't realize my clicks were that loud.
Your clicks are fine. My clicks were like super loud last week because of the whole computer audio thing.
Oh yeah.
So I was hearing it afterward and I'm like, God, these clicks are really loud.
Yeah.
People joining us in the chat, hello. Let us
guys.
know if we sound okay.
Hello, besties.
What is this picture you posted? Oh, okay.
It's
Got
from
it.
the show.
No,
Yeah.
that was from the
screenshot.
last episode.
Yeah.
I was like doing a quick rewatch, but like time got the better of me, so I was like really skimming the last 3.
Oh, that's unfortunate because they're like the best episodes. So
yeah, I mean, I blame live action Splatoon because I started watching that.
Did you watch that? Did you watch it?
Yeah, like I started watching it yesterday morning, and yeah, I'm like halfway through. I've been trying to like not binge it, so it's good.
Is it good? Is it worth it?
Yeah, no, I think it's good. I think it's great production and good soundtrack, and you know, survival games with some twists. So no spoilers, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Chat says they like your shirt.
People are saying that. It's like, oh, thank you. Thank you, Tijo. I think I'm saying that right. Tijo? Tijo?
Okay.
Tijo, Tijo? Why am I always so fuzzy in our video? I don't get that. Like, it's fine on our side, and then...
It could be internet connection. I think it was like you were cutting out a little bit.
It's my mental state. I'm so hungover. I can't.
Are you okay? Do you need a breather? Do you need 5 minutes?
No, I've had a breather. That's the problem. I had a breather all day, so I'm just really tired.
First time was right. It is Tijo.
Let's go. Thank you, Tijo.
All right, so I'm going to give like, I don't know, another minute, and then we'll just start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just hop right into it.
Just hop right into it. Okay. People are excited for you.
They're excited for... Oh, thank you. Hi, Klaus. Shocking. That's from... that is a Maid Dragon reference.
Oh,
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to go back and watch the season now.
I got to catch up to season 2.
Yeah.
I only watched like 1 episode, 2 episodes.
I didn't see any because I was going to binge it because that's what I did the first time and it worked out. So
I watched 1 and then I'm probably going to binge the rest. I might do the same thing with Villainous. Or
oh yeah, that's
yeah.
I got to see Sunny Boy.
All right. So, yeah, I got to watch Sunny Boy also. I heard good things, but I didn't know if I was like in the mental state to like watch it because I heard you know, it's like a lot that you have to kind of like...
That makes sense. I wasn't...
Well, not like I shouldn't say it in like, it's not like mentally draining like a lot, but
it's just involved.
Like, yeah, like you got to really think about it and it leaves you thinking, so.
Yeah.
Cool. So, let us begin. Okay. And welcome to the Just Weebs pod. For those of you joining us live, thank you for making it. I am your host that loves to push the envelope occasionally and occasionally gets burned, Onimaru, and I'm here with my awesome co-host who hopefully keeps me off the ledge. Shocking. So
I don't know if I'm doing that. You have an explosion Bakugo shirt. Like,
Yep,
I
just
don't know if
gonna
we're touching
self
it.
implode, and you're just gonna
Yeah.
watch and be like, fun. Where's the popcorn?
Yeah.
And I'm excited. I'm actually genuinely excited to talk today about today's. I said today twice. Today's topic, which is Mushoku Tensei, because I've been wanting to have this conversation for months, and Shaw hadn't watched it, so I'd been like referencing it in other podcasts, and she's like, "Yeah, bro, I don't know what you're talking about." And then thankfully, she was willing to kind of catch up to it within the last week, 2 weeks,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then just to watch it. And I didn't expect her. I don't think she liked it, but we'll see. I just wanted to be able to like reference it and finally be like, yeah, that thing in it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
As long as as long as we're here for references, gotta do everything to understand references. But yeah, I'm excited to essentially kind of clickbait my thoughts on it because I didn't really give any like input. I had like midway thoughts, and then I finished the rest today, and then I have more thoughts. So I mean, I
yeah,
like keeping the suspense going for what I thought of it. But
yeah. And I don't want to know your score. I don't want to know
I
that.
don't
We
know
could
a score yet. We'll see. It's between
we can
two.
do that maybe at the end or even
Yeah.
like a ballpark. I just want to kind of
Yep.
like break it down as much like bit by bit as we can. For those in the chat, I see someone already mentioning episode 1 of season 2, or the second core came out today. We
Yeah.
have not checked it out yet. We were going to, but then I figured like we really just want to talk about season 1, and I think that's a good, or the first core, and that's a good way to
Yeah.
kind of segue into us watching the second core, kind of getting our thoughts on it, because I haven't really like been able to talk about it. So now it's like,
Mhm.
okay, let's talk. So what did you think?
It was pretty interesting. I thought, well, first off, for the like background for everyone who doesn't really know, this really funny thing happened. I'm sorry for the anecdotal tangent, but
No, we
so
love those. Go for it.
yeah, after all, we're just weebs. So just tangents. So I had like a Curious Cat, the thing I post sometimes where people
Mhm.
ask you anonymous questions. Someone asked me like, what are your top 20 isekai? And at first I'm like, 20? Like, you
Yeah.
want me to? I'm supposed to come up with 20? Like, what? Like, first off, how many do you think I've watched, and how many do you think I like? And so then I actually went to go look and see like what have my scores been for every isekai I've seen. And I went to AniList and their tag of isekai because there are a lot of series that are just fantasy series that seem isekai related, but they're not actually isekai. Like How to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon. No technical, they're not technically going to another world. It's just their world, which is a fantasy setting. Same with like
Yeah.
Goblin Slayer, not a technical isekai, so like that wouldn't count.
Yeah.
But then you have stuff that doesn't seem like it would count that does technically fit the going to another world thing, like Spirited Away, Dorohedoro, where you wouldn't think that they're isekai because they don't really fit the modern isekai definition, but they still technically count. But
Mhm.
long story short, the scores were kind of low. It was not good. I didn't even realize it, but like it was not looking good. So going into this, it's like, what am I gonna do? Is this gonna be the one that I end up liking more or less, whatever? Because there's like, there's been like a lot of talk on it, like a lot of talk about the problematic aspects. And I know that like some people see problematic in our title and are already like cringing because they hate that word and they hate how much it's been used. And
Yeah,
I'm
I think
kind of,
we like lost 3 subscribers.
yeah,
It's just, it's not a huge deal, but I'm like, oh yeah, that word is a little triggering.
yeah, and I don't like that word, and we can get into that later. But like,
Yeah.
I don't like it because, as you know, I'm going into it. I have this preconceived notion that it's like, ooh, it's like the spooky show with the super perverted moves. Apparently, he's a pedophile. Apparently, whatever. Like, you just hear everything. So then you go into it and actually see it, and it's like, yeah, I could kind of get some of that. I can kind of understand that. I see how people feel like that, but then I also understand why people aren't bothered by it. So
Yeah.
I think it's a really interesting case study as kind of like the original isekai. Like, I'm not sure if it's the OG, but it was a very influential isekai light novel that came out way before a lot of them did recently, and you can kind of tell that it's like has some of the OG moves, like
Yeah.
OG tropes, OG ideas. And I think in that sense, it's more interesting to look at like what elements shape the rest of the medium. Like that makes it pretty interesting. And like, what does it really tell us about otaku's infatuation with the idea of starting over in another world that's completely different, that somehow benefits them more, and that their skills somehow benefit more, and that gives them a fresh chance at life that they don't feel like they have in this world. That's something I've seen, that's a pattern I've seen through a lot. And that kind of is like the center stage of this series. Like this guy, he got truck cooned. Shout out to the Just Weebs opening. The truck shows up.
Yeah.
So
we're not big isekai fans, but we have a truck.
We do have a truck.
But
so it's definitely not OG.
Yeah.
It was written in 2012. Well, I will say it was
a little bit of clarification and context on that, because I did read an article like right before this, like 2 days ago, that was written by Kim Morrissey on Anime News Network, also known as Frog-kun on Twitter. It was about Mushoku Tensei. It was like a really well-researched article that came out like back when it was airing, and I held off on reading it. I was like, okay, let me finally get around to this. And it talks about how it's not really the pioneer of the modern isekai.
Whoever came
it's
up
confused
with that,
for that, but the reason why like you could like confuse it with that is because what it is like it's a pastiche of everything that came before and took all of like the elements and put it into one thing, that it was kind of easy to produce like, okay, this is the template that a lot of things can be influenced from. But pretty much it came from like the web novel community. I think it's called Naro, and they all self-published. It started off with, not to get too much into it, we could always like link it later, but like they started off with fanfics, and then eventually they started publishing like original works on this website. And a lot of the elements that people kind of were like accustomed to always seeing were like the other world sort of things. And so that's why like a lot of current isekai that we watch are like so self-aware about all these like tropes and like, oh, going to another world, and they comment on it, and it's very meta because of that. And Mushoku Tensei just put all of those things together in one. So it was actually,
that makes sense.
Yeah. And it was actually coming out at the same time. The reason like it's hard to say it's the OG is because it was being serialized at the same time as ReZero, as this article pointed out.
Okay,
and I think Konosuba too. Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense. It's just kind of like the culmination of a lot of the tropes. Okay.
Yeah.
So
and
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
And to also give more context of like why I wanted to have this conversation is because like I feel like we've like touched on aspects of all these things in our previous podcasts, like just kind of like, either problematic stuff or isekai or, all of that. And I felt like you actually captured it perfectly. Like Mushoku Tensei is like a great case study, like a great example to kind of tackle all of that in one conversation and just kind of talk about it. So yeah, that's
definitely. And I do feel that it has a lot of like really interesting elements that I think are just kind of telling of the whole, phenomena as a whole. Like it's very evident that there's this certain contingency where there must be something where, like, I'm not saying every otaku, not every anime fan. It's just there seems to be a lot that really enjoy the escapism aspects that kind of, give this idea that you could go to another world, and the skills that do not benefit you now in society would somehow give you strength in another society. But that's a lot more fun, where you're a lot more well received. And I think that kind of idea really captures why so many people are into like isekai series as like just a subgenre of series that they enjoy. But I don't know, it's interesting, but I think it's telling in good and bad ways. And I know some people would probably not like the conclusions I would come to, because maybe it's like they like the series and they see themselves in some aspects. And it's definitely not I'm not trying to call people out and be like, I'm not trying to go full Ano and be like, go outside, touch grass. Like, stop watching this, go outside, touch grass. I'm not trying to do the 3.0, 1.0 moves, or like, the overt, like, stop going into escapism fantasies and acknowledge reality. Like, I'm definitely not trying to preach any kind of, moral high ground about, if you like this, this is bad. Because I don't believe that, and I don't think that's a productive conversation. But I do think it's interesting that how this character, the main character, do they just call him Rudy? I feel like they just call him Rudy.
He's Rudy,
It's interesting how Rudy was created, the concept behind him, the shortcomings that aren't presented as shortcomings, but we acknowledge them as shortcomings, and just like everything that's like his motives and his thought process, I think are really interesting and insightful to the otaku mindset for a lot of people.
Yeah, I feel like Rudy is meant to be like skeevy, like kind of unlikable, despicable, whatever, because this is like the story of his redemption, or kind of like, you know, the new, as you talked about before, like having another chance at new life, but also like kind of becoming a better person, because it doesn't really, I don't know, it doesn't, I don't say it like chastises him for it, but it also like doesn't like, it doesn't fully condone it. I don't know. I've heard like in the web novels or like later on, it's like supposed to be how he becomes like, you know, a better person. And what I like about how it tackles some of it is like, I feel like it's a little bit realistic in terms of he comes to this new world, he has a new chance at life. Obviously, he's still the same person in a new body. So
Mm-hmm.
whatever gross otaku-ness or whatever he had in his past life, that's not going to go away. And he's
Yeah.
obviously going to be tackling that the first you know, few years of his life, or even the majority of it. So although someone does point out in the comments, Amethyst, that it feels like he's been rewarded so far.
Yeah, I think I guess just hopping right into it, he's definitely not punished for any, like, for his perverted actions. Like, he's just not.
Yeah.
Because here's one of my issues that I get into, but I do want to circle back to like a thing that it does well. As you said, because he is just like essentially reincarnated and he has all his memories of his past life, he is still the same person, but he is kind of developing in a different way because he had a fresh start at life and in this affluent family, and like he's just, you know, learning the new world, taking advantage of being young and impressionable and able to learn different languages, definitely trying to do a lot of things. But the problem that I have is it's like, so they show that he's like super perverted, like he calls himself like, oh, I'm kind of a scumbag, like definitely perverted in different ways, but it's not like he's like he kind of gets a slap on the wrist when stuff happens, but instead of kind of like showcasing that as one of his like main shortcomings, they kind of have the world building kind of reaffirm him that like, oh yeah, well, like your dad was a scumbag, all of these other guys in your family are scumbags, so like look at how scummy everyone else is, you're just kind of on the same playing field as them, maybe not as bad because you're still a kid, but it's like they have, you know, they have his dad, they just casually mention like, oh yeah, his dad assaulted the maid back when they were in school, and he took her virginity, and he's like, wow, I guess my dad's a scumbag, but so am I, so I get him. And then they have
Yeah.
later on, like he's staying with, I guess, his uncle or cousin, whatever, he's
Yeah.
staying with the family members, and then he's just offering off his daughter, he's like, yeah, I'll just like tie her up and throw her in your room for the night, that kind of
What the
stuff.
fuck, Phil? What the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah, like casual dad moves.
Yeah.
So it's reaffirming that his pervertedness is shared amongst other people, which isn't really like unreasonable that other people are scumbags, but it's not highlighting like, hey, this thought process is bad. Like trying
Yeah.
to take off your cousin's panties while she's sleeping will have long-term consequences besides a slap in the face, baka. Like, you know, they're still treating it as kind of lightheartedness. So I think they show some of his other shortcomings and fundamental flaws really well, especially in episode 2, where he's too traumatized to go outside because of his past life as an otaku, where he was bullied and like shut himself in his room and stuff, and like he was just traumatized of going outside because he was a shut-in. So they show him getting over that in a really cool way of like the trauma is still there, but he's pushing through it. And
Yeah.
because Roxy was able to support him and help him, he was able to overcome that hurdle. And that was
Yeah.
really well utilized. I think that was like a really cool scene. But the problem comes into what the series is and isn't going to give a pass, or what
Well,
they're able to present as a character flaw, because obviously not being able to go outside is a character flaw and an issue to overcome, and the series has no problem mentioning, hey, it's, you know, you got to go outside, but it's not going to draw the line and say you can't really be an excessive pervert, because half of the show's comedy and appeal comes from that. So they can't scold the audience too much when there are aspects that they enjoy in it.
Yeah, and actually, right on that scene, that scene is I liked it with the whole Roxy like thing that she
Yeah.
brought him outside, and actually she's leaving, and then she gives him a keep a remember me by or like a staff or I forgot what she gives him, but um and he's like truly thankful for what she did for him, and he like a
Yeah.
tearful goodbye, and like and you could really believe that like this person really did something for Rudy and his new life and all of that, and it's instantly cheapened at the end of the episode because the maid finds like a keepsake of her panties that he stole like months ago, and he
Yeah.
just keeps that and calls it the holy relic, and it's like okay.
Yeah. And that was like a 2-second scene at the end of an episode. So they really just threw that in as like,
Yeah.
haha, panties. Like,
Because it's saying like, okay, this was like a big moment for him, but Rudy or this guy is still this guy, you know?
Yeah. So I think this shows an issue I've had with specifically light novels, not just because of like the medium of light novels, but because a lot of times light novels are very deep into otaku culture. Like there's a lot of self-referential things to other series. There's this idea that like otaku know light novel culture knows otaku. So there's always going to be this sense that they're going to try and, have some kind of commentary on being an otaku or, on the audience that's going to read it, some kind of like, go outside, like the world can be accepting, like you have to get over your fears of the outside world, like wholesome things like that everyone can agree with. Like we can all agree it's good to go outside. As much as we don't want to sometimes, like going outside our house, not getting stuck in our escapism is good. But when it comes to more like complicated things, it gets tricky because a lot of people do like the ecchi stuff. They think it's funny. They don't think there's anything wrong with it, and they have a variety of reasons as to why they find it funny or not harmful and why they think it's like totally fair game. So they can't they can't criticize something that's also responsible for the success and allure of the series. And that's when it gets tricky. And I see that with a lot of light novels where they indulge in the stuff that they should possibly also be criticizing, but they kind of half and half it. They criticize some, or maybe it's even the same thing. They'll criticize it, but then still indulge in it. And I've seen that in a bunch of different series.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to go to this comparison yet. I'll go to it later because I did have this thought about Rudius to Araragi and either differences or similarities, but not yet.
Yeah.
But I will say that I remember like when the first episode first like came out and people were giving their thoughts on it, and I think like someone on my Discord was like saying like, I don't know, I didn't like it too much. It seemed like it was too perverted or unnecessary because it had it like Rudy's parents like loudly like having sex or like you heard them in the background and stuff like that. And I don't know, I just thought like I thought it was like I vouched for it and I just thought it was like played up like, oh, that's humorous, like it has a perverted edge to it, but not like whatever. It was funny. I found it funny. Yeah. But then episode 2 has the infamous Roxy scene. And I'm like, okay, all right, maybe a little much, but whatever. It's still okay. The episode that was like, all right, was episode 4 with the maid getting pregnant.
Yeah. That one's just like a ridiculous degree of everything. Because here's what's up. I could totally I would also defend the parents having sex because like, that's something that happens, and it is kind of humorous. There's nothing like, you could just be like, oh, it's funny they're having sex. And they're always played as these kinds of like well-meaning but really frivolous people, at least so far. That's how they've been presented. So I could see that going into it. But if you're Roxy and like, even if they wanted to show her like getting off to the parents having sex, why the fuck would she be doing that in the hallway? Like that doesn't even that doesn't make sense. Even Domestic Girlfriend has the good graces to show everyone masturbating behind closed doors or thought closed doors. So why don't they just have her be in her room getting off to it or something? Like
which is
like that.
Which is what the maid did.
Yeah,
the maid was shown in her room doing that. So
so it's like have a bit of respect, have some groundedness. Yeah. But like that's when it gets like kind of weird with stuff. I think it's like it's such a mixed bag of things of like, okay, what did we find funny? And then what actually feels like this is crossing the line. And the thing is, it's like the whole maid thing could be played as this ridiculous scenario, but then like 2 scenes later, they're like, oh yeah, the dad, their words, the subtitles, and for everyone's You know, I know that it's always the subtitles, translations. I downloaded the Blu-ray copy. Like, I downloaded the Blu-ray copy. These are on the Blu-rays. This is the translations they have. So this is probably as close to canon as we can get. They said, like, the dad assaulted her and took her virginity. So by their own words, they're saying he assaulted her.
Yeah.
And why? So like that kind of takes any kind of goofy lightheartedness out of the equation, because in his past, that's something that happens. And I'm not saying that's not realistic, that like, you know, rich guys in feudal society just like hook up with whoever they want because they're rich and they're able to do it, you know, willingly or not. Like that's just something they're able to. But they're not treating that as like a serious thing in their society. It's just like, oh yeah, like this thing just happened. And Rudy's takeaway is like, my dad's a scumbag, but so am I. So we can understand each other.
Yeah.
Like that's like a bonding moment. So
it was funny because during my rewatch in the previous episode with the whole Sylphie thing, and by the way, I find his friendship between him and Sylphie, at least that episode, to be like, for the most part, wholesome. And I thought it was nice that he just learned all this stuff from Roxy and now he was passing it on, like teaching it to like someone else, even though like the whole didn't know she was a girl and then that whole other thing.
Yeah.
But like and then like knowing what I knew, like Paul tells him in that episode at the end, like, you know, it's not okay to force anyone. And I'm just like, that's rich coming from you, Paul.
Did you have to learn that like firsthand? Was this like a life lesson you learned from firsthand experience? Like, it's so weird. Like, I don't know, like whatever. And and that's the thing is, it's like, I could totally buy into the redemption story of him not seeing these people as kind of like video game characters, and he kind of comes to learn about like the human worth or individual value. Like if that's a lesson he learns later on, I'm down for it. But it's just so hard to kind of like buy into that now, when it's like, if there's anything remotely female, he's trying to make moves no matter what. Like especially the people his age. And I think it's almost weirder the way like the world is treating everyone. You know, like it seems like characters' value as people in society changes depending on the situation and like if they want to make an ecchi joke. That's kind of how it feels with stuff.
Example of that, just
So it's like you got is Eris, is that her name?
Yeah, the mom.
Yeah.
No, sorry, the redheaded girl.
The redhead, Eris. So she is the treasured daughter of like their family. They're paying for her to get tutored from him. They're paying for her to get trained in every sort of way. Like she's obviously a very valuable, precious person. But her dad is willing to just kind of like, you know, put her like and throw her into like his room, presumably for him to force himself on her so they could get married and he can stage a coup. Like I understand he has intentions of trying to, you know, get political power, but it's also like that's not how things would have worked in medieval society. Like she has a lot of value as a rich daughter that could have been sold off to someone for political power. Like that's how she would have been used, not like treated the same way the beast maids are, you know.
The gray rats are furries.
Yeah, the furries. Yeah, the furry kingdom. So I feel like it's kind of it's like inconsistent world building for me.
Into furries. Yeah, no, because I feel like it goes from moments of like where you could argue that some of the things like, okay, well, it plays into the society and the world, and some things are clearly for titillation, like the Roxy scene. Like there's no other explanation.
And that's the thing is, I'm definitely not against them exploring sexuality as a theme, but the fine line between treating it as a self-indulgent fantasy and treating it as a realistic subject matter is you got to show the good and the bad. So I was saw the one scene where it's like the grandpa is hooking up with one of the furry maids in the tower, and it's like he just hooks up with her and then he's like, okay, leave, and she leaves. And Rudy's response is like, yo, like my granddad is like getting it. It's like, yo, like my fucking man, like that's his response. And realistically, if say this was like Game of Thrones, they would be like, oh yeah, this is just this guy forcing himself on every maid because of the power, the political power he has, the social class, whatever. And it would not be treated as a frivolous fist pump kind of scene, you know.
But so to be fair, well, no, I agree with that. Game of Thrones didn't do that, but it did add like sex scenes for the titillation factor, and also HBO. But you know, but
like they did add that, which still can be kind of frivolous. But I think in general, something like Game of Thrones treats sex as like a serious subject matter. So
Yeah.
they show the good and the bad with it, just like with war, they show the good and the bad. And with this, it's kind of like, you know, they're introducing sex as a reoccurring thing, but they're only showing it in a fantastical setting in a good way, as something like, yeah, like, dude's fucking getting it, let's go, like a
Yeah, it's
bro
like
kind
a
of moment.
yeah, like
And
Rudy has like a frat boy mentality. So
yeah, exactly. So like they're not presenting it in the way that could be more realistic and more meaningful. And we know that the show is capable of showing the hardships of life because later on in the series, they're adventuring and Rudy is trying to calculate the best moment for their team to save that other team when they're fighting the giant red snake.
Yep.
And because he wanted to wait a bit, one of the other people got killed and the like most of the other guild with the douchebag pig guy, whatever, they got wiped out. So they're willing to show the hard cases, the hardships of war, of hardships of being an adventurer. So they are willing and capable of showing the downsides to society and showing the negative aspects of otherwise glamorous things like being an adventurer. But they can't cross that line with the sex stuff because that's part of the appeal for people. They want to indulge in the fantasy of like having a cool furry kingdom and being able to smash all the maids whenever they want.
yeah, yeah. I think there's like a lingering darkness there that they've just been hinting at for most of that, and it's just like there, the implications. But like for example, like the maid thing, like that episode, which was devoted just to that, looks like it was like it just really put a pause on everything.
But
Not
go
that it
ahead
was
and
like
clarify because we have lots of maids. We're talking about the original maid from
yeah,
his
sorry,
family, right?
the
Yeah, not the
original
furry maid.
maid
The original.
episode 4, Lilia,
Yeah. Yeah,
redhead. That will like you could say that was one of those that felt really unnecessary, but it is kind of like I don't know, like I can appreciate that like if you have these two frivolous like characters that are like doing it loudly every night and a maid has to live in with them every day that she wouldn't have like pent up urges. I'm like, okay, all right.
But the problem is this maid was raped by that guy like before in their adventuring days.
Well, that
So
just sours it.
so she's not going to be like, you know, realistically, if that was treated as something realistic, she would one either not want to be working in this house, or two, should not be trying to get with him, or like, or this would be a complicated situation. That's what I'm
Yeah.
getting at. It would be way more of a complicated situation than like, haha, they were having sex, so now I want to have sex with him. Haha.
Yeah.
That's porn logic. And there's
Yeah.
a time and place for porn logic, but if the series is trying to get us to take everything seriously, you probably can't use porn logic.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like Weirdy in the chat made a good comment. I feel that just comes from how Game of Thrones is told from a third person. Rudy being the narrator kind of shifts that towards his bias.
Yeah, but we're still kind of seeing it from like a third person point of view, and then we're hearing his thoughts. So we get like his take on it.
Yeah, yeah. Like I definitely think, we hear his take, but it's also like no one's really chastising anyone for that. Everyone's like kind of mostly incredibly horny in the show.
Yeah.
And I mean, like that's part of like what I like about the show. Not the stuff happening, but like in terms of like I like Rudy's being able to kind of get in his head and seeing him narrate for most of it. That's what brought me into the show. But then you also get the bad aspects. You're in his head, so you get him like also making the perverted commentary.
Yeah, it's kind of tough because I could almost see where they're going in terms of like, okay, he was bullied through his life, so he was traumatized and stayed inside, and being indoors, away from human contact, has diminished his ability to see fellow human beings as something that deserve respect and admiration, which is why like I'm not sure if this is hinted at or just the way I perceived it, but like he's missing a funeral to watch porn, and it's hinting that the porn is very like not legal porn, if you guys catch my drift. Not saying that. So like if they wanted to do this deep dive into this severely flawed character, they'd have to really try and dig deep into why he has this detachment from human beings, and why even in this second life he's not really viewing these people as a relationship he has with them. Like he's kind of likes his parents, but he doesn't view them as like his parents. He's just kind of like, yeah, these guys play the role of my parents. This person plays this role. He's viewing it as a video game that he is somehow in, but I don't see that he has these like genuine connections with people because he's so easily able to like objectify them and minimize them into certain roles of all of these different tropes of things. So that's a good foundation if they wanted to explore like why is he so like how did he get so detached and how is he able to undo that and start seeing people as like human relationships.
Well, I think I noticed this during my rewatch. I think this show like really slightly like hints at it with like showing those like kind of brief flashbacks to him being beaten up at school and teased and not feeling like he could go outside and all of that and being tied up like naked and all that stuff. That kind of made him into a hikikomori and like he wasn't going out. And I think it made him feel like more cynical and more detached since he's just kind of isolated. And then by becoming that, because I think it also hints, there's also two hints that there is like a shimmer of good in him, but he just doesn't feel capable as a human being to do anything. That's why he doesn't do anything. So like, for example, the way he dies is trying to save people like gonna get hit by a truck on the street. So he willingly jumps in front of it. It's a small little hint, but he does do that.
Yeah.
And then when he sees Sylphie getting beaten up, he could just walk away, but he goes and tries to, do something for her. And it's not because he thinks she's a girl. He thinks she's a guy, he goes to help out. So it's like a small like hint of good in him.
And that's a good way of showing that his experience of being a shut-in and like his otaku lifestyle, being an outcast, makes him able to empathize and understand outcasts, like he does later with Ruijerd? I forget how to say his name.
Oh yeah, the spurred, spurred.
Yeah, I feel bad calling him the spurred since that's kind of like against the message of the show. But I'm so bad with his name, so
I don't.
Ruijerd, I'll say that.
Yeah, Ruijerd.
With Ruijerd, where he hears his story and he feels a connection to him. Sylphie, where he sees her getting bullied and then he wants to interject, and that happened with the kids with the truck and stuff. They were getting bullied, and then that's like helps him connect with these people and really like start empathizing with them. So I think that's a good starting point. I just think it's such a complicated way of showing like someone with such complicated, not easily solvable issues, and it's not an easy thing to kind of do, and it takes a lot of nuance and care. And I don't think this series is wants to focus on that. I think the focus is elsewhere. So I'm not saying it's like trying to do it but poorly, but I think they're kind of doing it in the background and they want to do the cool adventure stuff first. So I think would be generally tough to do for any series, but I don't think it's like the priority for this one.
Yeah. I feel like it's like, again, I feel like the sexuality has been present like all throughout. I thought like there were moments where it left. I'm like, no, it's been there either in small doses or big doses, and it does muddle the message at times and like takes away from it. But it does have the heartfelt moments like you were just talking about, like especially with him opening up and relating to other people. Like I think that's like the show's developments are kind of like big like wham, like unexpected things that have like sort of like permanent repercussions, like Paul having another kid and now that's it, and then he has to kind of deal with that. He doesn't get like slapped on the wrist too much. He gets slapped and treated like crap, but that's kind of it. He still lives his life. But then Rudy getting sent off for the next 5 years to train this young lady, or sorry, tutor this young lady because he wants to get a job and fend for himself and do all of that, and so he's shoved to
Sylphie to magic school with him.
Yeah, and then they don't want him to rely on Sylphie, so he's gotta And I think that was like a good thing on Paul's part.
I think that was a cool move. I think that was a good responsible parent move that was realistic to the situation, especially knowing his son is like 8 or whatever. I forget his age, and so he's like, you're 8. Who knows if you'll still feel this way in 5 years? That's how much it would cost. So figure it out by then.
Yeah, but I do think like from Paul's perspective, again, he's still a scumbag, but like one of the things, it's interesting how like if you do have a son that does not act like a kid and like knows way more than you, and you're like trying to be a dad, it's your first time being dad, like how does that make you feel? Like you want to be able to teach your son, do something like, and then Paul even has that moment where it's like, I can't teach him anything. And then the one the one thing he can teach his son, which is horrible, but that the thing that he could latch onto is womanizing, or really just how to deal with women, because that's the one thing Rudy did not know in his previous life. And then that's like, okay, Paul takes advantage of that. But my focus there was just like, it's kind of cool that it addresses like, all right, if you have this son that's a know-it-all, and like it really does not seem his age. Even the maid was like, scared of him, because he really did not seem like a kid. He just seemed like a lecher.
It's good that they also address that in general. Like, good they're not just kind of like brushing off that he's like knows so much and is so not necessarily, I won't say mature, but like he has a lot of knowledge for his age. And it would have been a like genuine. It would have been such an actually good moment for Paul to be like, even if you thought she was a boy and you were undressing her because you wanted to help, like, they said, no, you got to stop. Imagine how powerful that would have been if that was the moment where it's like, okay, I can't just treat these people however I want. Like, this is the moment where I have to start like respecting them and not being a perv, or like not touching them as much as they like not touching them when they don't want to be. And then imagine if they just got rid of that part of like Paul assaulting the maid. Like that would have been a game-changing moment. And and the fact that they keep that in, they don't show that as like a movement of change, like a, not a catalyst for change for Rudy to improve. That's like a pretty big issue, because they want Rudy to move past his bad habits, his bad ideas, like the stuff that held him back in his other life that would hold him back now. But I don't think the series itself recognizes that as a bad thing. Right. And that's kind of the issue.
I mean, that's also true. But it could also say, that maybe Paul is not that role model, is not that person to show him that. And that's why Rudy, not that Paul thought this all through, but that's why Rudy has to go elsewhere, even though the other influences, the Grey Rat family is not good, but maybe the Ruijerd is a better example of, he's the person that loves children, is actually like a softie at heart, that's just like misunderstood.
He's the only person who saw Rudy being a perv and said, stop doing that. And it was in the background of a scene. It was not actually a big deal. It was Eris was bathing in the last episode and Rudy was peeking from the bushes. And so Ruijerd saw him and picked him up and took him elsewhere. Like, we're not doing this. Literally the only good influence in the show is the dude who is, what is it? Why can't I think? Discriminated against because of his race. So that's all we need to know.
Yeah. Drax points out in the chat, I mean, they kind of addressed the part with Paul because it turns out she was seducing him, and the reason they make you think it's him because he didn't want his mother to kick out the maid. But also apparently when they were younger, before he got married, he did like, I don't know, was it in the show? Because I know you were saying it was in the subtitles.
He assaulted. Yeah, I took a screenshot. I mean,
okay.
I took a screenshot of it. It says, he assaulted her and took her virginity. Like, that's like this.
Yeah. So when they were younger, he slipped into a room.
It's from the Blu-ray. Sorry to keep cutting you off.
No, it's okay.
The reason I keep cutting it off is that, I keep bringing it up is because it's like, this is the Blu-ray. Like, this is it. This isn't Funimation. This isn't Crunchyroll. This isn't, 9anime. This isn't like random fan subbers. Like, this is what they're putting on there. Like, this is the subtitles. They chose the word assault. They didn't choose seduce. They didn't choose another word for intimacy that is consensual. They chose the word assault and took her virginity. So, and they're followed it up by, yeah, he's a scumbag, but so am I. So they're acknowledging wrongdoing in that sentence and following it up by like, but I get him because he's kind of like me. He's kind of my bro. So that whole thing just like kind of completely fucks up any sense of goodwill. And like, And I think Panda has a good point. Keep in mind, the author wrote the storyline, the maid that got raped by a man is now seducing him. And just for also context, just for the, for just a reminder, her seducing him was, she left the door open when she was taking a bath. And he just came in. That was her seducing him. So that's also a bit of a like, we're not talking about someone who was, she says she's seducing him, but like the events are also like she left the door open and he just came inside.
Yeah. So
it's just like, it's kind of unnecessary. That's the whole thing. That's my point. It's like none of this is necessary, but it's like the series doesn't realize that this is a bad thing that undermines its own themes.
Yeah. And I feel like, and I was reading in that article I was talking about earlier from Frog Kun that she mentioned some of the author was mixing a lot of different isekai influences into this, but he also did use some eroge or some like actual like rants or like what are
Yeah,
they
yeah.
called? Like H games, pretty
Yeah, I
much.
know
So,
about rants. I hear about rants all the time.
yeah, rants is
Yeah.
is the definition of rapey.
Yeah.
So
So it's just like a tough situation because like I think there's some like really genuinely good aspects of this series, but I kind of hate it when series don't seem to understand like they're presenting something that is supposed to be like a shortcoming and they're not really presenting it as a shortcoming. And I'm not saying like every series that has like perverted aspects is a shortcoming, but if they do want us to get invested in like the redemption arc, are they going to treat the perverted stuff as a shortcoming for him to overcome, or is that just going to be another comedic aspect to his character that people will defend because it's an ecchi? Is
yeah,
that what it's going to be?
yeah.
Because that's like the big major. That's like the major issue with his character at the moment. Like,
Yeah. I mean, it was, someone pointed out in the chat, it was an unnecessary plot line. That was a moment where I was like, all right. But not to like spend more time on that. But in terms of like the show, like overall, like that is an important aspect. But what do you think, what do you think it does do well? And actually, I will say one thing, because I do hear like in the web novels, he was sort of always taking like audience kind of like feedback and just evolving the story as it went and like adding parts and whatever. So it could have also just kind of be mimicking like how the original story went, where maybe over time, again, it started out this way, but it became like something else. I don't know, but it could also like address how the story might to some people feel like it doesn't have like an overall like plot set that interests you. It's sort of aimless. It's sort of like, okay, he's in another world. What now? But that's what drew me in. That's what I really like focusing on as positives. That's what like I liked about the show, and that's why I'm like, oh, but the world building, because I liked how he's brought into the world, and like you feel like kind of all of his sensations with him. Like you're in his mind, he's narrating, he's really like breathing in this like how surreal it feels that he's in a new world. How he doesn't know that there's magic, and it's sort of organic. He just like, oh, there's magic in this world. Oh my god, and then like he spends a year like, you know, kind of like it just taps into my curiosity. Like he's just like reading the book and he's reading about incantations and it's like, oh, but what if I do this? And then he just spends like trial and error, finds out, oh, this isn't, you know, expressly said in the world, and he figures that stuff out for himself. And that's all super interesting. And it's still there throughout the majority of it. It makes me keep coming back and like, what is he going to find out next? Who is he going to meet next? You know, stuff like that. I mean, that's part of what I like about ReZero, even though like people are frustrated that he like keeps dying and has to keep redoing things. But for me, it's like crack. It just keep me coming back. Like, what is he going to figure out next? Okay, if he gets this much further, what are we going to know now? You know, so that's the part I think Mushoku Tensei does well. And in its first core, to go from he's growing up, like first 4 episodes, then he's hoisted off to this other town to tutor this aggressive, violent young lady, and then kind of training also for like a long time span, like next 5 years. And then suddenly now he's in the freaking demon continent, which you've been like hinted at and heard about. And he's with like one of the most dangerous like races, misunderstood ones that they were like talking about earlier. Like, oh, you should never be around one. And now he's kind of like tag teaming with one. So, and it's just like, where's this leading to? So.
Yeah, the show definitely took an interesting but unexpected turn when he ended up in the Demon Kingdom. At first, I was kind of like, I don't know if I want him to go to the Demon Kingdom and be an adventurer. I was kind of having fun with just the like slice of life adventures in the kingdom with Eris and I forget the beast chick's name. Ghislaine.
Yeah, Ghislaine.
I remember the beast chick. I just can't say her name, so maybe that leads to my memory issues. But I think it was I was kind of torn. I was like, do I want just the slice of life adventures as he grows, or is this adventure part going to be cool? And I do actually like the adventure part. I'm not sure if other people agree, but I think like Ruiger, the last Spard, is that how they say it? Yes, Spard group. So like they're like the discriminated group. He's like easily the best character, right? Like, are we in agreement, or is that a me thing? Like
that Ruiger is the best character.
Yeah, like
he's definitely the most respectful. So he's definitely by virtue.
Well, even then, like he's not really like idolized as like the perfect the perfect like person, because he has this really interesting complex where he shares his backstory of how the people who were ruling them gave them these spears, which ended up corrupting them and turned them into like bloodthirsty warriors.
Yeah.
And so, like, because his son sacrificed his life for him, he was trying to like redeem them all and show that like they're not actually bloodthirsty, and also I think reveal the secret of what happened with the spears.
Yeah.
So he has this really interesting complex where he's absolutely devoted to saving children, and anyone that will try to harm a children is an irrepressible villain. Like, they're the worst scum of the earth, and he just kills them immediately because he's like, they hurt a kid. Even when Rudy just got kicked and was like mostly fine, he's like, you hurt a child, you're a villain, you gotta die. Which is very interesting for him to have this black and white morality on something like that, when he's been discriminated against because of that. Like, that's something that plays into his issues. So seeing him just over like a couple episodes come to respect that children in this world do have their own sense of agency. They can put themselves in dangerous situations, and he has to kind of respect some as warriors and not just children. Like, he has to recognize that. And there's this one cool scene where he's one of the adventurer kids from that trio where one of them got killed. He's crying over his fallen comrade, and this guy was going to kind of pat him on the head, something like you do with a kid, but instead he shifts and he just kind of like taps his shoulder, because that's like what you would do for a warrior. And that was like a really nice subtle way of showing his mindset changing, of treating him like a fellow warrior and not just a child he was trying to console. So doing all that in like a couple episodes was really impressive to me.
I mean, he's a great character. His development and kind of just his backstory and his development is just like, it really hit me in the kokoro. It was really heartwarming, because even at the end where he like shaves his head off and he's just kind of like vibing with them, like, let's go,
Yeah, I think that was really cool.
And he's like this big scary dude, but in reality,
really
he's
powerful
just
guy. Yeah. So I thought he was definitely like, I don't want to sound mean, but he was definitely like the character that stood out to me. Probably the only character I thought was like really good. Everyone else is kind of like various levels of like decent to okay to like not good. But like, I think they did a good job with him. I think he was cool. So I'm invested in his journey in season 2. So,
I'm definitely interested in where it's gonna go. I mean, I like Rudy with like an asterisk. I think
you like him more than you want to admit, because you said I think he's your favorite in the show.
I mean, when he's not doing moments that are just like, come on, man, like uncomfortable. It's like, like it's all right. Like most of the time he's good, but then there are certain moments like I can't vouch for you, man.
Yeah.
I can't. Like definitely with the whole Eris moment where she was sleeping and he was trying to grope her and stuff, and it's like, or he did, and it was like, okay, you're a 34-year-old man, dude, and she's like 10 or whatever.
Yeah.
So I like him. I like Ruijerd, and then everyone else is okay. I mean, I like Sylphie. She's nice.
Yeah, so. She was kind of like she was there.
She didn't do anything. I actually liked a lot his banter with Roxy. That was fun.
Yeah, I think it's tough because I definitely want to like those characters more, but the show just is not like giving them enough chance as characters. Like, I think they did some decent stuff with Eris, where she kind of has to like overcome being a spoiled brat, has to overcome the complex of working hard at things she's not good at, like normal kid stuff. I think that was pretty okay. I think that's kind of fine, but I mean, I think so. My thing is like Rudy, his like sussery aside, like putting that aside, I don't find him too interesting outside that. He's like kind of fine, but probably he's not a character I dislike, but definitely not a character I like, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah. Aside, outside of the sussery.
Even putting that aside, I'm not sure if I would find him to be like a super interesting character. Like, I think the one part I thought was cool was just the like showing his trauma and bullying and him overcoming that. That was kind of that was a good moment. But
besides that, like, I'm not super interested in like his backstory. I guess like I just like him because he's my lens into the world, and that's kind of like him kind of growing and all that stuff. That's something to latch onto. But again, I'm just kind of curious as to where everything goes, and that's where I find the most interest. In the I do want to address some comments that have been
So we
building
got
up
a lot of
now.
great comments while I was just rambling on.
Panda Avenger said, out of curiosity, do you guys think Mushoku Tensei would have been better if it doubled down on the horny instead of being more self-aware, making the horny parts come off as more serious? Sorry if already discussed.
So that's the thing is I would be down if the series genuinely wanted to delve into the idea of Rudy being a legitimate pervert who harasses and assaults people and does not view them as fellow human beings and has that be something that he has to overcome because in his past life he was unable to connect with humans after being ostracized by society. I would be totally down with them showing that as a genuine hurdle for him to overcome. But the problem is they're not going to do that because they're not going to criticize the actions in the series that I think a lot of people find entertaining and funny. Like I think people do find him like trying to take Eris's panties while she's sleeping. Like I think they find that funny and they're not viewing that as something that needs to be criticized. But if the series wanted to actually do that, I would be all in on that. That would be really interesting and cool to see that they're actually taking those things seriously and trying to address that in his redemption arc.
But then that would be I think that would be a completely different show. Unless, like if it's putting that much focus on it, then it would just be different. And I think that's what Wolf of Wall Street's problem with the show is that it bothers him how it's having its cake and eating it too. You know, it tries to do so many things simultaneously.
Yeah, definitely.
Followed up by ecchi comedy, serious exploration of traumatic life that led to a twisted understanding of sexuality and attached showing a fantasy world where that's just how it is. Okay.
Yeah, and Panda followed up by saying, I meant if they just made the show purely ecchi. That would also just be a completely different show because you could tell that this one definitely wants us to like take certain things seriously, and I think in that one it would be like Ishizoku reviewers, right?
If the show is purely ecchi, I think I'd be out. Like I just wouldn't watch it. I just don't watch. I don't care for them because then I can't. There's nothing for me to take seriously. So I guess that's why the show has like such a mixed bag because. You know, unlike at the time that it was airing a redo of Healer, where people knew what it was as advertised, people just weren't, you know, people that wanted to check it out, checked it out. And then, you know, Mushoku Tensei was more of like, oh, what is this? Okay, this is interesting. Oh, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And it gave people mixed emotions. Let's see. The moment where Rudy has a sort of moment while crossing his house boundaries is probably, we talked about that one.
I think it's like between that and then the moment later art with that I mentioned with Rougeard, those are two like definitely highlights for me. Those are like very impressive. In general though, the show has really impressive production value, like very interesting fight choreography. The animation for the magic scenes are really top notch. So they're definitely doing a lot with like the material, you know.
Yeah, no, I thought the production was great. Like a lot of care they put into it. Actually, well, I heard that to do the stuff that they wanted to do for Mushoku Tensei, it was a little complicated, and they even had to make their own studio for it, and that's why it took a lot longer. So that's why a lot of these, like, you know, we're getting like bombarded with all these isekai. We think, oh, you know, that's a new trend, but it's actually been around for much longer. They just took a while to adapt and are now, like, they were coming out like ReZero and Konosuba in 2016, and Mushoku Tensei just took longer. So that's why that's coming out now.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, you know, Drax points out the second season is going to have less pervy stuff as this is the point where it starts to become a typical light novel, which is
that a good thing or a bad thing now? Because typical light novels,
I don't know. That doesn't sound good.
On that. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I am really invested in the story, like the world building and like that stuff, but just typical light novel just doesn't sound good.
Yeah. Typical light novel, like saying those words to me, that's kind of a kiss of death. You know, that's like, oh.
Yeah. Weirdy points out, I think the studio's bind is basically most of the ReZero season 1 staff. So, but so like addressing now, like I guess I got your general thoughts on the show. I think I could say you more or less enjoyed it with, you know, obvious reservations to certain things, or you enjoyed certain parts of it.
I think I definitely enjoyed it more than I thought I would. And I could definitely understand being on either side where the perverted stuff is too much for you, so you hate it and nothing else is good, or if you're able to overlook that and enjoy everything else. I could understand both sides almost equally. So when I'm in this situation of, you know, there's a lot of like sus stuff going on that could take away from the main stuff, I try and like compartmentalize that away and I say, okay, but like, how do I feel about everything else, that not included? And I think focusing on that of like but what do you think of everything else? I think it's like still kind of a mixed bag where I think they could do a bit better character writing. I think they could have like a bit tighter dialogue that's a bit better for the characters, that reveals a bit more about the world building and the personalities of the characters. But I think for the most part, they're doing like pretty okay, especially for the first core of a season. So
Yeah.
of a 2 core series. Like, you know, we only have 11 episodes as of when we're recording. We have only seen 11 episodes,
Yeah.
and that's not that many episodes. So I'm willing to be a bit more forgiving for what's going to come next.
Yeah. Class Fact says he predicts you'll give it a 6, which is actually higher than what she had it at before. So maybe, but I don't want to know yet. I don't want to know.
I cannot. I think it could go. I could go either way on that. I was thinking either a 5 or a 6.
Yeah.
But then I was like, can I put that at the same? Can I put this at the same score as ReZero? Which, as much shit as I've talked on ReZero, I do think ReZero is like a lot better than this. Like a lot. And I don't know if I can disrespect ReZero.
Season 1, you mean? ReZero
yeah, I haven't seen season 2 yet.
Yeah, Amethyst says the show bounces from an 8 at its highs and a 3 with its lows for me, so it's in a unique place for me. I'm like, I get that. I think the highs are really good, and then its lows are.
That's the question for me. It's like, how high are the highs? Like, how high can we get? Much higher? Like, how much high is that?
I mean, I guess I'm more excited with Mushoku Tensei for its potential of what it can be. Like, what if I'm a little more cutthroat with it, and like if I were like scoring or whatever, I'd be like, well, you know, the certain things do take away from the storytelling, like episode 4, or certain things that don't add to it, and you know, and it's not like this is trying to be like some art house piece, you know.
Yeah, because that's the thing is, I do think some of the preferred stuff, it's not even just like I don't like this. It's like I do think some of it takes away from the overall message that they're trying to put across with Ruby. I do think it kind of takes away from the idea of his like redemption, becoming a better person because of the tonal dissonance and inconsistencies that they have.
Yeah. I mean, let's see. And then I still don't want to get into the score for myself yet. I'm still like,
ooh, you're still clickbaiting, so I'm gonna clickbait.
Yeah. It's a strat. The other thing was talking about like problematic aspect, and we've talked about it before, obviously, but I kind of really want to address it, like, because it's like, what do like for people that like the show, right?
Yeah.
Like unironically, or they just like the whole show as it is. Like, what is like, should other people be telling them like, well, you shouldn't like it because it's problematic? Like, how do you feel about problematic in general, and not just Mushoku Tensei, just kind of, you know, every controversial show in the past 3 years?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, so we were kind of talking about it a bit before. So I'll say this: I think I said this before. I don't like calling things problematic because it's such a like umbrella term that could be, you know, the show is like a rape fantasy to like this character said something I don't like and it's problematic. Like it's such an umbrella term that people throw around so frivolously that I never know what it means. So like if someone came to me and was like, Mushoku Tensei is really problematic, it's like, what do you mean? Like, use actual words to describe your issues with the show that's not just problematic. And the second point problematic that I don't like is it places this weird burden of guilt on the people who are enjoying a fictional series and calling both their enjoyment and the series itself a problem. And I don't like that as like an opening sentence. Like, think of like how loaded that sentence is. Like, you know, you told me you like Mushoku Tensei. And what if I said like, oh, Mushoku Tensei is problematic? That's such a like really rude thing for me to say for a show
fuck
you
like. First of all.
I'm like saying this show is a problem and it's a problem, you like it. But I'm not even saying why nor expressing any kind of ideas. So it's like the most unhelpful kind of conversation that's super judgy and makes everyone feel bad. So I hate like any kind of conversation where it's like, this thing is problematic, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you you're a bad person and this thing is a bad person, but I won't inherently tell you why. And that's like, I don't like that kind of discourse with it. And I think that just leads to like people feeling worse about themselves and not really being willing to have these conversations. And that's why people will probably see this and think that like, we're just going to be sitting here judging the show. We're going to be like, not fun. We hate it. And we're going to be like, they shouldn't do this. And you'll get the same group of people who are like, this is why we need to gatekeep shows because we
Yeah.
can't have people with these thoughts.
Yeah, Josh M in the chat. It feels very similar to how a religious person would say sinful to me. So yeah.
Yeah, that's like
sinful.
yes, yeah, calling it like sinful behavior. Like,
whoever
so
doesn't whoever likes doesn't like Mushoku Tensei, and wants to cast the first stone, feel free. No,
yeah.
but
yeah. So I mean, I don't think you should be trying to tell people they don't like something. I mean, going back to Redo of a Healer, if someone told me like, yo, I love Redo of a Healer, I would want to be like, so why do you like it? And then depending on their answer, like I might think it's a bit weird that they like it, but I still don't think they're inherently a problem. I just think like sometimes people like some shows for some weird reasons, but that's still not inherently a problem. Like I'm never gonna watch Redo of a Healer. Like you could not pay me to watch that show. There is literally no reason for me to watch it. Would I say there's no reason for it to exist? Based on what I've heard, I mean, that show seems to be the closest to there's no reason for this to exist. But some people like it, and maybe, and like a weird, rare chance, like maybe it weirdly helps someone in some weird way. And because of that, maybe it should actually exist, even though I don't like it or find it uncomfortable. But it's not my place to tell people what shows they can and can't enjoy just based on like my own preferences and stuff, especially when we're just talking about fictional stuff, like just enjoying like an anime.
I think the more accurate term for like in the case of we're not doing a Redo of Healer episode. No, it's not happening. Doing that. Just someone just said that in the chat.
Okay, how much would we do a Redo of a Healer for? Like
300.
I would say 1,000.
1,000. Oh, like okay, yeah, I'm down.
$1,000, I would do a Redo of Healer episode.
$1,000 cover the whole show.
You couldn't do it if you pay me. 2 seconds later, 1,000. Final answer.
1,000 Patreon.
Yeah,
that's a tier. But in regards to like, I think the more accurate term, like to say, instead of problematic, is divisive. Like people come or polarizing.
It is a polarizing show.
Like, hey, you came away with it. Like a lot of people just felt differently about it. Like, like I was fine with most of Mushoku Tensei, but like similar to you, I can understand both sides. I could see, like, there are certain things like the lolly stuff, like whatever that makes me uncomfortable. The sexuality, not as much, but I can see like how it's unnecessary. Although Paul, the earlier thing about assaulting her, like that was like, all right, man, that's not cool. But like, but I can understand how people could take issue with it, and that kind of puts me in a weird place where it's like, all right, well, how do you navigate this? Like, is this inherently problematic? You obviously don't want to condone this, but not much of the stuff like bothered me too much, aside from the few things I mentioned. But it's like the same thing as like a show like that's mostly like highly praised, which is Made in Abyss, but there are certain people at the time that found it problematic, and it's like, how can you like this? Like these children on this adventure getting tortured, whatever. And it's like, well, it's not like I'm condoning that. That's part of the story. That's part of, what's the world building and kind of what happens in their world. It's like, but how can you stomach that? I'm like, well, I can, although it crushes my soul. Yeah, but it's good storytelling, and I need to know what the fuck's at the bottom of the abyss. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just like so many people have different like preferences and boundaries that it's always felt weird to try and enforce your own boundaries on someone else. And like any kind of judgment of character based on what they do and don't enjoy, then it's like very odd. It's very odd behavior. Like very odd to be like very odd to try and think of like, okay, you like this show, therefore you suck. And that's why like we were having a conversation where I was like kind of like iffy on Mushoku Tensei, and you said something like, well, I feel bad because I enjoy it. And it's like, no, you shouldn't feel bad for enjoying it. Like, I think you were mostly joking, because like, I wouldn't make you like feel bad for it. But I was like, no, you shouldn't feel bad for enjoying the show. It's like,
you should just question your life choices. That's it. That actually is what she said verbatim.
I don't think I said that. I would say it, but not this time. Joking. I'll save that for the next one. Season 2, question your life choices.
Yeah. Someone mentioned Hisoka is problematic.
Yo, this is kind of funny, and a side tangent. My stepmom sent me this like TikTok of this one dude like over analyzing Hisoka being sus with Gon and Killua as like he's unable to feel fulfilled because he's always chasing the idea of being like the most, like acclaimed fighter and like fighting the strongest opponent. So it's part of like him not feeling fulfilled at his core. And I'm like, fair fair enough, but I think they just wanted to make him weird and creepy. I think
You
it was
know,
a weird situation.
remember my weird Hisoka hot take that we don't want to remember from like that
Hisoka
first
is
hot takes
good.
episode? Well, that was just because I was just overthinking it, but like, so that came out weird. But in terms of like, I actually did not think for a long time, and I was joking with my friends about it because me and my other friend read Hunter or have read Hunter x Hunter or whatever, and we did not think Hisoka was a pedophile. We just thought like, oh, he's just a battle maniac, and our
Yeah.
friends were telling us like, no, he's a pedo, and it's like, no, he's just a battle maniac, and we were just like defending it wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And then someone like I think later showed me a picture of like Hisoka like because I forgot it's been a while,
Yeah.
but like just checking out Gon's ass, and I'm just
Yeah,
like,
and like in Greed Island, yeah.
it's like I can't defend.
Yeah.
I just forgot
Well,
about that
They
completely.
can like both be true. And but I've seen people say stuff like you can't find this thing creepy because you like this thing and they're the same. And like a lot of times it's not the same. Like, you know, for all my someone could say like, okay, you're criticizing Rudy for all this, but you're a Hunter x Hunter fan and you like Hisoka. And my reasoning for that is Rudy is our protagonist who we're supposed to root for and get behind his actions. Hisoka spends the majority of the series being an antagonist who is still somehow less creepy than Rudy in this show. And if the creepy clown guy is being less of a pervert than the 10-year-old kid who got reincarnated into a new world, then we might need to reanalyze who's the protagonist and antagonist.
Yeah. And actually, this is a good transition point to ask Araragi Monogatari or Rudy from this show, Mushoku Tensei. Like, do you think they're same level? Is it different for you? Like, how does it feel to you? Like having watched Mushoku Tensei, and like, is it a similar feeling you got, or is it like, no, this is different?
So my issue always with the Aragi thing was, besides like just not finding the jokes funny, like I just don't find them to be very funny jokes in the series. My problem is in the first arc of Monogatari, they tackle sexual assault as a genuine issue that has been that traumatizes his would-be girlfriend Kitagi, and that's like how they start the series, is taking a very serious subject very seriously, only for a couple episodes arcs later he ends up being like, you know, he's sexually harassing and like sexually assaulting the like lolly characters. So like my issue is kind of the cognitive dissonance of that, of like, so we just turn our brains off to one of the major character moments for these jokes, which I don't find that funny. And the series never treats him being a lolicon as, you know, a like personal issue for him to overcome. They're never like, hey, like this is like a character flaw of you that you have to overcome in the series. Instead, it's like he's too selfless at his own.
They mostly play it up for laughs.
Yeah, and it's played for laughs because they're not actually tackling it as an issue, even though like there's like tonal dissonance between the two. So that's something that bothers me, which is why I think it's like a actual flaw in the series beyond just like jokes I don't find funny. Because it's like, okay, how am I supposed to take this beginning stuff seriously when I know what's coming in later seasons?
Yeah.
So that's kind of a beef for me. Mushoku Tensei doesn't actually take it that seriously, as evident by the one-off comment of the maid getting raped or whatever. So they're not taking it that seriously, but it also has the same issue of like cognitive dissonance where it's supposed to be a lighthearted thing, but it's never really taken that seriously. So I don't know, like I think it's tough because Araragi and Monogatari is a series that has so much more potential. Like if they remove that aspect to me, I think it would be infinitely better. Whereas with Mushoku Tensei, if they removed it or maybe gave it more focus as a character flaw for him, maybe it could have been better too. But I think like there's more lost with Araragi. But is it? I don't know. I don't, in a weird way, I don't like blame Araragi for that as much as I blame the series not taking it that seriously.
Yeah, like
so
the writer.
I don't know. Yeah, the writer not taking it that seriously.
Okay. But
and Araragi, of course, gets way more of a pass from the community because people like Monogatari more. And in general, it like character writing is better, visuals more creative. It's more of an acclaimed series. So it's a good series, so Araragi will get a pass.
But do you think it should get a pass as much as...
No.
Okay.
Because it's the same issue that we were talking about before that Wolf of Wall Street brought up, where they want to have their cake and eat it too. And that's so evident, I think, in Monogatari, where it wants to have have its cake and eat it too. They want to be able to seriously delve into sexual assault as a serious subject matter, and then a couple episodes later treat it as a joke. The
Yeah.
fact that like in the first couple episodes we have like symbolic imagery of some guy groping Senju Gahara, and then it's almost like that same imagery could be used for like Araragi preying on the 10-year-old body character who's actually 25, ghost, whatever, not looking at the legality, but like that same imagery being used. I'm like, this just feels so weird for the same series. So that's where my beef comes into play. I don't think it should get a pass.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
I understand why some are not bothered, but I think it should be like, I think it's kind of like a weird thing that just shouldn't exist in this series.
yeah, it's something that's just there, and it's like it does cheapen the overall arc for Araragi, like where again it's about him kind of like being a good person, but it's like, oh, but that's there, but it's played up for laughs, but then it's like, but we just talked about it, so
yeah, like it doesn't bother you, right? Like you're not bothered as much with Araragi as you are Rudy, or is it kind of the same?
Let's see. I mean, like with Araragi, I tried to just, I don't know, I tried to not think about it actively. It just was like, well, this is there. I think with Rudy, it's like, it's way, because I think like Monogatari tries to kind of like make it seem surreal, even though it's actually happening, and then you can't really tell. Like it's just so vague sometimes that it's like, okay, this clearly happened, but they're playing it off as a joke, but you don't really know. Whereas with Rudy, he's actually like doing it, and it's like, okay, hold up, like what are you doing? Stop. It's uncomfortable. So it might be more of a problem with Rudy, I guess, like, but only like slightly, because it's more clear. But then when you like, if you try to defend Araragi's arc as a whole, then there's that little just kind of asterisk, like, wait, okay.
And to clarify, I don't really mind, like, if they wanted to actually make it a serious issue of like, this is something that both of these characters have to overcome, I'd be totally down. I'm not saying you have to censor all that and not, explore those subject matters. I'm saying it's like, they're really just treating it as a joke for most of it, when like the audience is looking at that as like, oh yeah, well, like he's not perfect, he's a lolicon and a ciscon, but the show's not treating that as an actual flaw. They're not treating that as an issue.
Yeah, so because a lot of that, sorry to cut you off, a lot of that is like partially like we were saying earlier, like a marketing tactic or something, or not that they're, because these come from web novels, but just like something that the audience will buy into or make them interested. Like have like similar to waifu culture, or a lot of anime that come out every season, I feel like are pandering to a kink.
And that's the thing, is like the series can't be like, hey, you guys are weird for being a lolicon. Like the series is not going to come out and say that, because it knows that a lot of the audience will be lolicons who enjoy that content. Like there is that aspect where they're not going to present these things as bad or a character flaw because they don't want to call the audience out, because that's who is going to buy the stuff. Like they want to directly insult the audience. They got to like somewhat self-criticize, like, hey, you should go outside and make connections, you shouldn't shut yourself inside. But they're never going to be that hard-hitting of like, you should not do this, because it knows that like that would alienate the audience.
Yeah. And as anime fans, like as a friend has pointed out to me, like we've just gotten used to it. You see it so much in anime that you sometimes forget, even like when you go outside of our sphere, that if other people saw that, it's like, they'd just be like, oh, that's weird. But we're just so used to all of this stuff that a lot of it does get a pass. It's like, oh, well, I've seen worse, like, come on, it's the same old shtick. And it's also kind of like a bit of resignation, I think, for a lot of us, at least speaking for me, that it's like, well, the studio's not really going to change. It is, like we said, it's selling. It's part of that. It's part of the tactic. It's so ingrained in otaku culture, isekai, tropes and culture, that it's not going away. So we're like, all right, well, we'll just hang back here and take the gems that we can get. And we do get a gem, but there is this stuff. We'll just, overlook it and still, at least I think. Do you disagree, or?
Yeah, I think we do that. I mean, like, it's always, there's the group of people who are like, they find the jokes funny and it's not an issue for them. And I don't think they should have to pretend that they have an issue with it just because other people do. But I do think there should be this certain level of understanding that, like, showing this stuff is not going to be like acceptable to everyone, especially something as, dark humor-ish is sexual assault, where people do get sexually assaulted in real life. Like there are real cases, like there are real cases of 10-year-olds getting molested by older guys, and that's like not necessarily a funny thing for people. Like
Yeah.
that's something that happens in real life, and that's where the disconnect comes into play with people who don't find it funny and find it like offensive. I'm not like on the level of like, this is like we need to destroy this, like this has to go. But I understand why it's like, it is a caveat that you have to warn people for. Like I would show everyone Monogatari if it didn't have those jokes. Like I think it's the coolest looking thing. It's so cool. It's so interesting. I know so many people who would like it, but like I can't defend that stuff. So how am I gonna like show it to them when I can't even defend it to like myself?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think like a lot of it is cool, and there's so many well-written arcs and character moments that really resonate, just like same thing with Mushoku Tensei. Like I heard that what really resonated with people when the web novel was coming out was the part about Rudy overcoming his trauma, and that's the part that really stuck.
Yeah.
So, but there's just so much of those other moments that it kind of cheapens it, but not to rehash the same thing, but moving away a little bit more from the heavy topic and more into in general isekai, because we talked earlier at the beginning of the episode, you were saying that you had to rank like at least 20 isekai that you've seen, and just like your overall thoughts on isekai, your beef with it, which you've mentioned before, and maybe like where does Mushoku Tensei, I guess, fall now in this isekai list?
I'm pulling it up because it's just like such a ridiculous list. I can post it. I'll post it in like I will post it somewhere else if people want to see it. If they want to see this disgusting list of rankings. So I've kind of said it before. My general issue with the isekai subgenre is I find like a lot of the world building to be kind of lazy and rehashed. It's kind of like the same Dragon Quest fantasy setting, and I've always been way more of a sci-fi person than a fantasy person. So that's just the personal preference as to why I'm not always going to be interested in isekai world building. And I do think, as I've kind of come to discover from Mushoku Tensei, that I think there is just a lot of this kind of like playing into the deep otaku fantasy that I find kind of alienating, just because I don't find it that interesting, or as not to flex, not as relevant to me. Like not to be like, oh, I went outside, so I don't understand. Like nothing like that. But I think a lot of the themes that like get explored, even when taken kind of seriously, are just not really as interesting to me. And I'm thinking of kind of like I think of Subaru's arc where he has to learn to treat people as actual people and not treat them as waifus, or actually come to value the relationship he has. I think that's a very valuable message and lesson for people. I think that's like really cool to portray through the series, but like it's not something I super connect with in the way that they portray that, kind of to the same degree as Rudy in Mushoku Tensei, like him overcoming the trauma, or kind of learning to value others. Like it's just not something. I'm not saying I don't value others. It's just the way in which they're going about it isn't really like super resonant to me, because I think I've just had other kind of personal goals and like experiences that don't necessarily match up with that mindset, which is why it's not super like powerful to me. But I think it's cool that they explore that. But I think I would just like a bit more variety in the worlds that they're going to, and then maybe just like a bit of a different approach to each isekai. But in general, it is like the most prevalent thing is I'm way more of a sci-fi than fantasy person, and I think that's why I'm not as interested in this subgenre.
Gotcha. So most isekai, even I guess the more well done isekai would be like ReZero. Like I'm going by, highly acclaimed by the fandom. I'm trying to think of other isekai. A lot of them are like copy and paste,
I guess using one I have been a weird defender of, but also not liked. Sword Art Online, I think actually has really interesting world building. Like everyone seems to be able to agree on the concept of like, we're in the future, we have these VR headsets that let us literally go to another video game world. Yeah. And I think Aincraft was a cool setting in a video game world, but I think more prevalent is in season 2. They have the Mother's Rosario arc where they show that this girl who had like AIDS or like a very terminal illness would use it as a way to go play video games, escape her real life, and get to know other people. And they show how the technology like was able to help her and how she was able to have many experiences.
Yeah.
Like that's a really cool use of world building for me and how they used it. Like I think that was really well done. Then everything analysization happened, which was like, okay, I guess we're done. We're done here. So
I mean, apparently SAO, from that article I was mentioning earlier that I read, it also mentioned it had such a big impact on that web novel community when it came out. And that also is what led to the gamer, you know, so you get the two kind of subgenres, or like the of Isekai, like where the ones that have the more the gamer mechanics weaved into it, and then the more of the fantasy or a little bit of both. So that's how we got a little bit more of the template for that. But yeah, like for the most part, I really enjoyed ReZero, and I think I could resonate with it more. I related to some parts of like Subaru, like some of his struggles later on. So I could see why that would jive with me, not with you, because that doesn't resonate with you and kind of what your life experience is. But you know, I've enjoyed Log Horizon was good. I love Slime. That one's pretty good. Season 2. By the way, in the chat, please let me know what is wrong with ReZero's season 2, because a lot of people say it's not good, and I still don't get it.
I heard the adaptation was bad or something.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't read the original source material, so is it more of a just like the source material is just executed, like it just tells it better, and then they just sort of like kind of ruined it in the adaptation, or is there more to that? So if anyone in the chat can let me know, I'm just curious.
Yeah, that would be cool to hear about, because I'm not like well versed enough. I've just heard the rumblings of like source material better, adaptation bad. So that's just kind of what I've heard and what I've gathered. But I think I was looking at my stupid isekai list. I do have to say, in all fairness, a lot of the good isekais, I don't want to say, I'm not saying that to say they're not good. I'm saying those are what people have dubbed as the good isekais. So I'm not trying to be like condescending with my use of apostrophe. Like Log Horizon, I still have to check out. Escaflowne, I think I'm like 8 episodes in, but I have to finish that. 12 Kingdoms, I've heard great things about. I got to check that out. So a lot of it is like laziness on my part. So I do have to give more of a fair chance to.
I mean, it's laziness, and also, well, I can't like it's probably, you know, your laziness, or it could also be you know, that you're also don't feel that strongly toward isekai already, so you're just, you know, it's fair that you're not motivated to check out some other stuff, and you like sci-fi more. So
I do like sci-fi. If we have the sci-fi isekai, I think the Matrix is a sci-fi isekai. See, I do like isekai, guys. It's just sci-fi isekai.
Sci-fi isekai, I guess. Yeah,
because they're in one world and then they go back to our world, which happens to be, it's like backwards isekai.
And he gets there, and then he gets told he's the one, and
oh my God,
you know, dude. Video essay. That's
we cracked the code. It's good.
Just Weebs video essay coming right at you. First one on the Matrix. Matrix is an isekai.
And now and then here and there is another of the good isekai list.
I heard about that one. I was gonna check it out once, but then I heard mixed things, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, I'll check it. I will check it out. Gotta add on to my isekai list.
So I think the difference between the modern isekai and the older isekai, from what I've come to understand it, obviously the modern isekai is the one that got dubbed, you know, isekai. That's where that term came from, because they're the more self-aware ones, and as the older ones are, you know, not really self-aware. They're not poking fun at themselves for being like, hey, this is an isekai. It's like, you know, it's just sort of, they just went to this other world instead of becoming templatized. Answers to season 2 of ReZero does tackle something that bothers Shaw, though, the fantasy being something to run to. The best ep approaches all the good Subaru left behind.
Yep. Yeah. I heard good things about that episode, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah, that was good. And then people are saying just the pacing. It took so long to get a not rewarding payoff, at least on my end. Pacing is a bit stilted. Love season 1, but fell off like 6 episodes in season 2. I mean, it did take forever, but I don't know. People complained about that part in the first season where like that stretch from episode 12 to 18 like took forever, and people fell off, and I was like, wasn't too bad.
Be honest, with all my ReZero complaints, pacing was never a complaint. Never had an issue. Yep.
But watch season 2. Let me know what you think.
Here's been my thing of like, I wanted to go back and rewatch season 1 and then go into season 2. But I keep trying to give a break between the fandom kind of being like, watch it, watch it, watch it, like go do it. And I wanted to like breathe for a bit and then go watch it. So I've kind of been trying to pace myself so I don't get like.
I recommend you watch the director's cut. It was a good
Okay.
rewatch for me doing it, watching the director's cut. Chat, if you want to expedite Shaw's ReZero rewatch for season 1 and watch season 2, that'll be $500.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, right.
and then you'll get the ReZero pod.
Nothing offensive to Redo of a Healer, but like ReZero, we might get that one for free. Redo of a Healer 1,000.
Yeah, 1,000.
Here's my justification for the 1,000. 2 reasons. 1, I don't want to do it. 2, there's 2 of us, so it's technically 500.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a 2-for-1 deal.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much. So do you feel like Mushoku Tensei, out of like the isekai you've watched and kind of don't feel great about, do you think it did the isekai thing well? Is it, as an isekai executed well, or besides, again, the unsavory aspects, like the actual world building stuff?
I'm trying to think of it compared to some of them because I feel like I've seen all of the like weirdly outlier isekai series in some way or another. Like I've seen Shield Hero, I've seen Overlord season 1, I've seen half of Slime, I've seen ReZero, Sword Art Online, I've seen No Game No Life, Konosuba. All of these are I've seen Grimgar. Like I've seen a lot of the like different takes on isekai, and I haven't necessarily seen the generic isekai. I'm not sure what the generic isekai is besides like the smartphone one or whatever. Like that one feels like the generic isekai, and I don't even know if I've seen I don't know if I've seen it. Like I just don't know what it would look like because I feel like I see a lot of the outliers. But
Gotcha.
I don't know. I think Mushoku Tensei does like a decent job. I think it does decently. Like it's kind of tough to just judge off after 11 episodes of anything when it's not intended to be 11 episodes. Like we have another season coming out. But yeah. I can say that I am interested in seeing where it goes, which is more than I can say for most of the isekai series I've seen. That's, I guess, my version of high praise of like, if I'm curious, that's all that matters.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think that's really good. That's its big selling point to me. Maybe we'll see if season 2 kind of wraps up a big chunk of the arc so I can kind of make more of a judgment on what I think of the second core of the whole thing. Because right now it's that whole, where is it going to? And that's what it keeps me interested in that. Mm-hmm. And then in the chat, Amethyst asked, curious about thoughts on isekais with female leads versus male leads. Are there many isekai?
I think I might have given up before I got to the female leads in isekai because I heard about like Villainous and then
I guess
other ones.
Yeah, that is an isekai. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that one was great for what I watched. So.
I have, apparently it counts. I feel like it counts, but
I've heard about Bookworm.
Oh, I look at Bookworm and I don't want to watch Bookworm. That looks like, no, I'm not going to watch Bookworm. I'm sorry. But
I've heard good things. I just wasn't. What was that?
Okay, so here's what happened. Like Jack and Core, how they had the Jack and Core channel, which is now spilling the milk because YouTube sucks. So Jack and Core had their series on Book where they kind of watched through and kind of like live reacted, but they were making jokes about it. And I realized by the time I finished their Bookworm series that I would not have as much fun with Book as I would have watching them watch Book. So yeah, like Book is out. It's been ruined in the best way possible because it was really funny to see their series. So Book is out of the equation. But
so the series is called Book.
Adolescence of a Bookworm, but they just called it Book.
Okay, gotcha.
They just called it Book, and it was really funny.
And did they were they making fun of it or?
Yeah, because it looks kind of ass to be H. Like it's got the like the CGI fire. The CGI fire, and then like a lot of the other aspects were kind of, it looked underwhelming based on what they showed, like art design, background art. Like it didn't necessarily look the best. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's another one of those where it's like an older female woman was reincarnated into like a child body and was like smart. So like, because she has all her previous knowledge. So then she's smart and like as a child, whatever. Yeah. I don't get that. I mean, I get it, but like, I would never want to be reborn as a child. That would be the absolute worst.
I mean, like Rudy.
Yeah, yeah. Like I would never want that. That
Uh,
sucks so much.
although I think it's pretty cool that in Mushoku Tensei that Shaw slayed all episode, knew there was going to be a betrayal at one point. Damn.
I mean, like, yeah. I've seen people in our chat are like, well, how do you feel about female leads instead of male leads? I guess they're thinking in terms of this of like, well, if there's a female lead, they might not suck as much because they might not be pervs like the way Rudy is. I don't necessarily think changing the gender is like
Yeah, it makes a difference to you. Yeah.
an all saving solution because I mean, like
All right, I
it
got it.
might lead to more interesting scenarios,
All right.
but I don't think it's an inherent source of quality. Like it really has to come down to the writing and what their goals are and what they're trying to accomplish with the characters and the writing. And if I don't find that interesting, I don't think the gender of the main character is really going to matter that much.
Okabe in an isekai.
Well, I'm just thinking back to like in the ReZero in the ReZero, no, not ReZero, in Steins Gate Zero, there were parts where he kept getting transported to another timeline where he was in another country and everything was gone to shit. So I'm like, he kind of got isekai'd by his own trauma at some points, but I don't know.
Isekai by trauma.
Isekai'd by trauma, but going back to one of the ones, it's like female lead, technically Spirited Away is an isekai, and that's the one I have rated the highest. So maybe it is.
I do
Female
like
lead fits.
Saga of Tanya the Evil. That was good. But technically, that's not a female lead. Technically,
Yeah.
it's a guy in a girl's body. So
Yeah. So I mean, not necessarily the end all be all solution.
yeah. So I was gonna say that the thing that's the other thing I do like about Mushoku Tensei, that it does start Rudy off as like a little kid, as a baby, and then it just doesn't because a lot of other kind of isekai like kind of speed through that process and they just get older and they're already powerful.
Yeah.
And like it's just kind of an incremental process. It's just seeing him like kind of grow, learn enough, but still leaves enough mystery, and he's just still kind of growing. And I think that just is part of what I like about it. Yeah, I think that's done pretty well. And then he's still like amazed by things and still finding out things, and you're not just told everything at the beginning. You're just kind of told piece by piece. So I was gonna say something else, but I forgot.
Panda left a comment saying non-binary isekai protagonist when, and I thought that was Slime. I thought that they counted.
Do they? Well, they are in the new world, but he is a guy.
I thought
Was a guy in his previous life.
Yeah,
but
but I
you know
think
what?
they're Slime now. I heard
they are
people
non-binary.
say that they don't have a gender. They're either like non-binary or agender. I'm not sure if that's a term or if I made it up. But that I've seen that argument, so that might count.
Yeah, because like it's not like he says it and identifies as it, but kind of by choice, without a choice, like biologically, he is. He doesn't have a gender, so yeah. But yeah. So,
So here's the real question. I watched Mushoku Tensei, 11 episodes. When are you watching? Did you see Tatami Galaxy?
No.
Guess you are now. There you go.
What the F?
Tatami Galaxy episode it is. Or Tatami
How did this
and Ping
happen?
Pong. Because Tatami Galaxy is 11 episodes. So.
Oh, I didn't even know we were like doing a contract.
We are now. Ha ha ha. Let's go.
I mean, did you just say Ping Pong was 11 episodes too?
Yep.
I mean, I haven't watched that either.
You haven't seen either of the actually good 11 episode anime. I watched this one. You've seen this one, and you're rewatching it. And we have two good 11 episode anime.
I thought you said you liked this one.
Okay, no, but I mean, like really good. Like,
yeah.
These are the 11 episode anime you can bring home to your mom, though.
That's true. I don't have to put an asterisk. I don't have to put a caveat. It's just like, here, mom, we could watch this together. I still want to show her Ava, but let's see. I'm down. I mean, I've been meaning to watch both for like years and never watched it. So
it's time to ascend.
Class Fact makes a good point. Every Just Weebs episode is a ping pong episode. So
I'm gonna start playing the OST.
I mean, depends what you guys want me to watch first. If you want that to be
should that be a poll?
A pod sometime soon. We can devote an episode. You've already watched both, so it's a matter of
I have both.
Catching up. Although I did promise replay value I would watch Hyoka and Kyoso Giga. Yeah.
If you watch Kyoso Giga soon, you can come on the Kyoso Giga podcast of we lost a bet and now we have to do a Kyoso Giga episode.
Yeah. How
That
soon
was
is
10
that?
episodes. That's 10 episodes, so that's good.
How soon is that pod?
I don't know because I think everyone there has to watch it except me because I've seen it.
Oh, okay.
So I
All right, let me
I
know.
gotta round up the masses.
All right, let's see. I have Amethyst as Tatami Galaxy and Mushoku Tensei at the same score.
Amethyst strikes again. Probably the 6 out of 10 squad.
There is a betrayal.
Yeah, I expected it. It's tragic.
I don't know. I think I'd give. Should we just do scores now?
Yeah.
I think I'd give Mushoku Tensei like. I wanted to say an 8, but then I do think like some things like.
You feel guilted into it.
No, like I do think some things like storytelling wise. Someone already called me disgusting.
Did
Some
they?
things I think,
No.
but
Oh,
I think
disgusting. They're not calling you disgusting. They're calling you
it's like
something else.
you gave it an 8. Disgusting.
Gross.
I think like if I'm being honest, like cutthroat, like I do think some things take away from like the unsavory bits. Not all of them, but some of them do really take away from the storytelling. Like so I'd say like a 7.5. You know, I'm not gonna go down that dramatically. I still enjoyed it. I'm still really excited for the second core, but if I want to really hone in on these rating systems, not everything can be a fucking 8. I can enjoy something without it being an 8.
That's true. So respect the 7s. We like our 7s.
Yeah. Yeah, because you could have a favorite that's like 7.5.
You could do this. I do like the 7.5s. I will not reveal my 7.5s because that will like piss some people off. Some people will not be happy with my 7s. So yeah, I think I'm gonna do the 5. I think it's a strong 5. I'm excited to see the second season. Because
I thought it went up to 6 for you because of that what's his face, that arc, the last arc.
Yeah, but like it went up a bit, but I was thinking back and it's kind of like I'd say it's like progressively getting better. And like I'm hopeful that arc is like the lead into the next arc being better. So like I could see this next season being like a 6 or higher, depending on what happens. But like we're still in the early games, still kind of warming up. Some parts were like some of the early parts were like, you know, sus, but also some stuff just not as interesting. Like that's the main thing is some things were not as interesting, but now
like what? Just
like I think the whole like episode where like he's like we're gonna kidnap, the kidnapping episode was kind of lame. Like that kind of thing was stupid.
I mean, she got her teeth kicked in. You know, that was
I never really thought that teeth getting kicked in would be boring, but here we are.
You're like I didn't give a shit.
Yeah, because it's like we're gonna pretend to kidnap her. No, wait, she got actually kidnapped. Okay. So like that was just like not that compelling because I didn't really care about anyone. So I'm like, okay, whatever. And they're gonna get out of this. So we're like, fine, fuck it. But so I think it's cool. We're like going in the right direction. Like positive trajectory.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean that's
I cannot put this on the same score as Liz. They're gonna kill me. I can't.
Oh my god.
They're gonna kill me. Don't tell them. Don't tell them.
That's how I had to think about things too, like putting something at the same score as something else, because then you forget what else is at the same score, and you're like, okay. And then I think to end it off on this note, would you? I just thought of about this. Would you say Mushoku Tensei is like a power fantasy? It is, right?
Yeah, 100%.
It's not like not as overt as like Irregular at Magic High School or something like that, where the main character is OP from the get go, like absurdly OP. But it's. What
did I give that show? I'm gonna give that a 5 too. Maybe you should lower that one.
Hey,
that show was actually more boring, I think.
Yeah.
That show was not that this show is boring. I'm just saying in terms when I said it was like this part was like not as interesting. Like I would watch a second season of Mushoku Tensei. I would not watch a second season of Irregular at Magic High School.
And I did. And I regretted it.
And I did.
And I regretted it.
That one's like so lame.
What was that?
Yeah, that one's lame. Maybe I should lower that.
And I thought my scores were inconsistent. Look at Shaw.
No, I'm just hardcore. Someone was talking. I think it was saying they were in our chat before. They're like, man, you really don't like mecha. And I was like, I have like 10 mecha in like my top 50. Like, what are you talking about? And they're like, no, it's just like the vibe I get from you. I'm like, well, the vibe is not matching up with reality in my scores.
Well,
so.
Ava doesn't count as a mecha.
Oh, are we saying that now?
I mean, I think most people don't consider it like a traditional mecha because of like all of its other elements.
But that can be our next episode. What is a traditional mecha? Because then we're calling it. Because if we say all the things that are like unique in the mecha genre are not real mechas, then it's like, what is the traditional mecha?
Yeah, like I think they're kind of when they say that, and I don't want to diverge into a completely different topic, but I think what they're saying that is because they're trying to counter people that like, oh, Ava's like the best mecha of all time when all they've watched is Ava.
Yeah. You know,
so
you get the big three. I don't like mecha, but I like the series of Ava, Gurren Lagann, and Kogias. The big three.
Yeah.
And I've seen some Gundam. Like I like mecha series. I think they use mechas in an interesting way. So I'm not a mecha hater.
I haven't seen enough Gundam. Do we have to like go through a backlog of like essential mecha before we can be qualified to have a mecha episode?
We might have to ask people at what point are we qualified for mecha series? When are we allowed? What series should we watch for the mecha episode?
Yes, let us know. And yeah, I think
we got 2 polls going on soon. We got 2 polls going on.
Yeah, we need to write those down. So we're gonna have 2 polls going on, and actually, I should probably let everyone know now before we head off, because I think we should head off. We maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow after this, we're gonna put out what is it? A submission form for hot takes from you, the audience, our listeners. Our next hot takes episode is gonna be us, Just Weebs, versus our community. So
we're putting it Just Weebs versus our community.
Yep.
It's like so what's the word? So inflammatory. But to clarify, our next episode next week is not going to be the hot takes one.
Yes, sorry, I meant like our next hot takes episode. So we'd give like
a couple weeks, because we got to compile the takes. We got to compile everything. So we're giving ourselves a few weeks to compile the takes, and then it'll be a free for all.
It gives you time to really think about those hot takes. You don't have to offend us unless you want to, but just kind of think it through, and then come up with your hottest take, submit it, and then we'll see what we tackle on it. The one thing I will say about those hot takes, actually I forgot. I was going to say something.
Can we defend them? Yes, you got to include a defense.
That's what it was. So you say your hot take, but you are more than welcome, because I've made it anonymous, so we don't have to know who you are. Just you kind of only one hot take per person, by the way. So you submit your hot take, but if you feel like you want to defend it, because we will rip on it, during the stream, and if you want to come on to the chat, roll up for the live stream and defend it, you are more than welcome to. You have to just reveal who you are. Be like that was my take.
Yes.
So
I think that's a good call.
Yeah. So that's that. Anything else, Shaw, that you want to add about Mushoku Tensei, Isekai, or problematic stuff?
I don't think people should feel bad for liking something that might be sus or have some weird aspects that people might call problematic. I hope we can have more like fun conversations like this just in general, where it's like insightful and we can give like everyone, not just us, not just Weebs, everyone can have like meaningful conversations on it, and like how they found things interesting and enjoyable, and it can be a bit less judgmental. So I think it's fun to experience this stuff, even if like you end up not liking something. So here's to hopefully more open communication brought to you by the one and only Just Weebs.
Yeah. Thank you. And I am so thankful, appreciative that Shaw actually indulged me and did check out all of Mushoku Tensei when she probably wouldn't have. I
probably wouldn't, but like I do think it was worth the watch. Like I'm definitely more positive on it than I thought I would be. I know the 5 doesn't seem positive, but with my own scoring bullshit, it's like 5 means I could go either way, and this time I'm choosing to go forward. I'm gonna watch the rest of the season. So. And
I respect your scoring system. It's cutthroat, but it's respectful. And what?
It's like Project Runway. You're either in or you're out.
Yeah, exactly. I aspire to have that soon. But no, and I definitely think it's a super interesting case study, like, that for us to like just talk about, to be like, oh, well, this is always going to be a good example of of what is perceived as an inherent problem, and maybe it shouldn't be. So anyways, That's all we got for this episode. If you guys enjoyed it, let us know by giving it a like. Let us know in the comments what you thought of the episode, what you think about Mushoku Tensei, what you don't drop your hot take down there. That's you got to wait for the submission form for that.
Yeah.
And then if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, help us grow by subscribing. And lastly, if you really want us to watch Redo of Healer, that's $1,000. And
$1,000.
What was the other one that was 500?
I don't think we. No, I said I would rewatch ReZero for free. $0 for
Oh, okay.
ReZero. I'm not that much of a snob. But $1,000 for Mushoku Tensei, final deal.
Yeah.
We will take requests.
Yeah. And besides that, this is just all our opinion, but you should all, try to be respectful of each other and all of us and our other, all of our opinions, because at the end of the day, what do we know? We're just weebs. Is it over yet? All right. Let's see. Do you want to do a post show? Chat, do you guys have questions?
I probably have to get dinner. So I don't know if we have.
Shah is hungry. She said, fuck the post show. Sorry,
I heard
guys.
Suki in the other room too. So Suki is throwing a hissy fit.
The dog comes first. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, the dog content. If you want to see more of Suki, I think Suki made a cameo in the latest Our Anime podcast where we did interviews, and Suki is barking in the background. So she made her podcast debut.
We can actually have a Suki on video. We could have a dog episode.
That would be so cute. Do you have a dog?
My fiance has a dog, so.
Oh, cool. So you're like, not my dog.
It's custody right now is complicated.
If you'd be like, it's like one of those things where like when the dog is being nice, you're like our dog, and then when like they do something wrong, it's like your dog.
I would do that. All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. We will catch you guys next week. You guys are awesome.